And I'm Anderson Cooper, and tonight I will be speaking with Ellie Wiesel on 60 Minutes. Thank you, Ellie. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is your wonderful book, Night.
Thank you, Anderson. Night was my novel to inform others about the hatred toward the Jews during the Holocaust. See that it did not complete this as well as I would have hoped, because there is still a lot of hatred in this world. For example, the hatred of Muslims and the stereotypes surrounding them. Like in my novel, these people are hated without good reason, but it is justified by unreasonable and inaccurate stereotypes. This is just like the inaccurate stereotypes placed upon the Jews in the Holocaust.
Thanks, Ellie. Now, I want to ask you about a line from your novel. And I quote, "Without passion, without haste, they slaughtered their prisoners." What is the meaning of this line, and what are you trying to convey?
This next example shows that the Nazis had no regard for the lives of the Jews. By showing no remorse when killing the Jews, they instilled fear into the hearts of the Jewish people. By doing that, they could inevitably control their actions since they could do terrible things to them.
Now, thank you. I want to ask you about the hatred towards the black community in the 1950s and 60s. And I want to ask you, how does that relate to your novel?
People that have been living in a certain area for a long time are oppressed and treated like outsiders, even when they have been there for a long time. This relates to how the Jews felt when Hitler first came to power and limited them in what they could do.
Now, I want to ask you about a line from your novel. And then one day, they expelled all the foreign Jews from Saget. Now, how does this line express hatred?
It shows that the Nazis had no regard for the Jews in the way that they lived. They would evict them from their homes without reason and tear apart lives. This was all in the hopes to slowly eliminate the Jewish people as a race. None of this hatred towards the Jew was with reason. It was all unjust and backed by political propaganda.
Now, there's another line from your novel that I have a question about. And the line is, "There are anti-Semitic acts every day." Now, how does this line show hatred?
This example shows how the other people began to accept their outlandish actions toward the Jews. By accepting that, it only created more hatred because now it was accepted. This made other people join so they wouldn't look like they are opposing the views of the general population. By doing this, they eventually made most of the population be okay with the terrible acts against the Jews.
Now, I want to ask you another question. What do you think of the imprisonment and the hatred of the Japanese people directly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Thanks, Anderson. This was unjust because the actions of few affected the outcomes for many. This relates to the novel in the sense that a few Jewish stereotypes influenced the outcome of millions of people, many of who ended up dead.
And then the Germans arrested the leaders of the Jewish community. That's a line from your book, Ellie, and I want to ask you, how does this show hatred?
This line shows hatred by showing that the Germans left them without leadership and without a means of having their voice heard. This made them even more powerless because without a respected leader, they had no one to project their voice. Even if the German government wouldn't sympathize with them, the individual soldiers and officials may have, making this less devastating.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I'm Anderson Cooper, and I'll see you next time on 60 Minutes.